Hi everyone. For today's class, we'll talk an interesting topic, no? Which is because we'll be talking about arts in the Philippines. No? Because last time we've been talking about arts, but not really focus of arts in different locations, no, but or different countries. However, when we talk of that one, the history of art, somehow we touch the arts in other countries, no. However, that's not the focus. The focus there is the history. That's why probably it's good also to explore that topic, no, arts in other countries. But before you have to know the arts of other countries, know your arts first, no, your local arts in the Philippines, no, and then you can explore the arts of other countries, no. Unfortunately, it's not one of the lessons in this course, no. Okay, class. So let's dive into the objectives for this topic, because we have another topic to discuss, which is about soul making. So that's corresponding objectives for that. So for this topic, to enumerate the branches of art in the Philippines, no, to identify the functional and other forms of art. Actually, we'll talk here of non-traditional art, traditional art, functional art, and other forms of art. So in effect, this topic divided into four parts, no? 4 parts. Unlike the second topic, which is soul making, it's kind of short, no? It's like 9 slides, but it's very important. Probably that's why it's the last lesson, no? Because there's like misunderstanding when you talk of art appreciation, and which is the title of this course. There's more about it, no? We'll discuss that later. That's why it's good that that's the last lesson, soul making, no? Really, the title itself is kind of deep, no? Soul. You're talking of soul. Okay, class. So let's discuss this first, the lighter one. Okay. So as I mentioned, we'll talk about non-traditional, traditional, functional art, and then other forms of art. So let's start with the first one, which is the traditional arts. So these are the bearers of traditional art can be nominated as Gawad Manlilikha ng Bayan, equal to national artists. No? If you win this this award, then you receive this this medal. No? The medal looks like this. Okay, so let's have an example of this traditional arts. So we have folk architecture, including but not limited to stilt houses, land houses, and area houses. Stilt houses is something like this, no, or this, no. If you notice, there's a purpose, no. It's kind of it's not under functional art because when you say functional art, it has a purpose more than that, more than the other goal of having beauty in it, no. This one has a purpose. It's more on from flooding, not protection from flooding. Now, if you notice, now that's why it has 4 legs. Okay, protection from flooding. Okay, so the others are self-explanatory, no? But I guess we can Google this more regarding the aerial houses, no? If you have time. Otherwise, you can do independent study on this. Okay, class. Next is the another traditional art is the maritime transport. So as mentioned, maritime, no, it's connected to sea, no. So this one, boat houses, the art you see in the boat houses, boat making, or other maritime traditions like this. No? So right, though it has a purpose also, but it's more of not a, you can say it's functional art, but it's more under the traditional art, no? It's possible that art can be that one can be both, no? Traditional, then it's functional as well, because if it's very obvious, no? It has a function, but you also see beauty in it, right? If you look at it. Especially this one's kind of colorful. No? Look at the designs, no? Right? But you see it on the water, right? Oh, this one is about to okay, whatever. So, oh, it's just the look of it. Just the look of it, but it's not about to no? So I'm thinking like it will it will go the other side, like float, sinking on the other side. So just the look of it, no? But not really. Okay, so. So to proceed, so there's another one. This one is kind of familiar to us, the weaving, right? We see art in weaving, no? Basket weaving, backstrap, loom weaving, headgear, no? The headgear weaving, fishnet weaving, and other forms of weaving. Okay, and in fact, in the next slide, we see more examples here. In other provinces, right? We see this in provinces, right? Or even in cities, right? We can see this. Or even others where but not most, no, not most of people, no, in the cities, no. But I mean this art, no, we see this, no, right? Even in the mall, like they're selling, no? Okay, yeah, this one usually in the market, right? Okay, so anyway, so that's weaving, the art from weaving. And then we have also art from carving, no? A traditional art from carving. So including but not limited to wood carving like this, and folk non-clay sculpture. So sculpture. So it's like under the visual art. So remember, this one is also like we criticize this, right? In that lesson, if you were there, we do critical thinking on this because in that lesson, when we talk of that, about other classifications of arts based on medium, the visual and the audio art. This one is actually not mentioned in the visual art, no, in the introduction, but it's major part of the discussion, no, the sculpture there, no. That's why when we discuss this, how come it's not classified in one of the two? It would have been better if it's mentioned in one of the two, which is actually visual art. Actually, it's obvious in a way, no, but it's better if it's mentioned under, as an example, under visual art. And indeed, it's visual art. But actually, at first, we're thinking of like, this is like another classification of art based on medium, no, like three-dimensional. Because we have there a classification of visual art wherein we have visual art, and then the other kind is the, under the visual art, we have the two-dimensional and then the commercial decorative art. That's all. So that's why we thought of like, probably there's another one, the three-dimensional, where you put the sculpture. But it turned out sculpture is under that second, no? Commercial and decorative art, the sculpture. Because when we Google it, when we use the Google, it's under, three-dimensional is included in the commercial. So that's the good thing with class, no, being critical. You don't just depend on the module or the presentation, but you do your searching also, no? Actually, in education class, that's another skill that you develop, critical thinking, no? That's a way to practice it, no? Every time you study, you also search, no? Don't be satisfied with just one source. Okay, but of course, the not the bad side, but what you will experience there is sometimes you'll be overwhelmed with so many information. That's why if you're used to it, not anymore, no, as you continue doing it, you will not be overwhelmed, no. You will have a way to deal with that already, no. Okay, there's like a technique, no, when you like confronted with so many information, there's a way to filter them, no, so that you won't be overwhelmed, no. You only get those related to what you want to find out. Especially you will do that class when you do research, no? Okay, so as early as now, you practice that so that you don't get overwhelmed because you do it always, no? You practice it, okay? So that when you do your research, probably your research may be related to art, no? We don't know, or non-art, no? Meaning not really other subjects, no? But still, that practice, critical thinking, is very important. Okay, class? So anyway, so this one is another non-traditional art from carving, no? From carving. So another one is, yeah, there's still more that we see here, no? Usually from provinces, right? Or even in the cities, right? We see this. Usually we see this in the being sold in the mall, right? Or even in the market, right? But usually they produce in the provinces, no? Okay, class. So that's it for carving, and then we have another one, folk performing arts. No, not traditional. That's why there's a folk here, no. Folk performing arts. So dances, plays, dramas, no. So here we have the names, no. Cariño. Probably you're familiar with this, right? Cariñosa, Tinikling, Pandango sa Ilaw. Okay, folk performing arts. Another example of non-traditional arts. So it's dance, no. It's dance. Okay, class. So next is the ornament, textile, or fiber art. So hat masking, mask making, accessory making, ornamental metal crafts. Okay, but I don't see example of the metal, no? Probably it's good to explore this also, class, no, if we have time. Otherwise, you just do it independently, no? Okay, so and yeah, this one is for pottery, no? So this one is for the this one, fiber art. This one is for pottery, so ceramic making, a clay pot making, and folk clay sculpture. So this sculpture is again here, no, but it's under pottery, no, not wood. So you can use this using okay, so another way of producing a sculpture instead of carving, no? Okay, so it's more of molding, no, molding it. So that's for pottery, another form of non-traditional art. You may not be aware of it, right? That it's an art, no, but it's under no an art. Usually, it's kind of functional art also, right? Because it has a purpose. Okay, but it's categorized more on the pottery or the traditional art. Okay, so we have another one, artistic expressions. So the non-ornamental metal crafts, martial arts. Okay, so the supernatural healing arts, medicinal arts, and constellation traditions. This one is something to explore also, no? The constellation traditions. No? Okay, so I think that's the last one. Yeah, for the traditional arts. Now let's go to non-traditional arts. Okay, I think this is your because it's modern, more familiar with. So we have the, again, just like the traditional arts, if you can be bearers of the non-traditional arts, can be nominated as national artist, equivalent to Gawad Manilikan ng Bayan. So again, this is how the medal looks like if you win this. Okay, so let's have the examples. So the dance class, na? Dance choreography, dance direction, and dance performance. So these are like the artists na, that won the award. Na? National Artist for Dance. Okay, still alive. Na? This one is the National Artist for Dance also, but she's dead already. Na? But at least able to leave a legacy. Na? Okay, so that's for the dance as an example for the non-traditional art. Na? Another one is music. So probably you're familiar with Ryan Cayabyab, no? Because yeah, to me he's familiar, no? He's known to me, national artist for music, no? So he's given this award, no? Ryan Cayabyab, still alive today, no? So musical compositions, musical direction, and musical performance. So this one is under the audio art, right? Based on medium, no? Audio. Okay, but later class, the literature, we also have an example here, no? Under the non-traditional art, no, the issue, our issue on the as being audio, no, the literature. So anyway, so this one is another bearer of the award, no, national artist for music, Jovita Puentes. But she's not familiar to me, but he is familiar to me. I don't know with you, probably. Yeah. So anyway, so next is the theater, no. Theoretical direction, theatrical performance, theatrical production, design, light and sound design, playwriting. No? This one involves art also. No? Non-traditional art. So again, this one, national artist for theater and music. Probably this one is related to Ismael Bernal. I don't know if you know Ismael Bernal, but later we'll see him also for the film. This one for the theater design. No? Probably a brother. No? So next is the visual arts. No? So the visual arts, that's a type of another classification of art, right? Using based on medium, no, that we have been talking about. So indeed, there's a sculpture, no. So because we're talking of non-traditional, that's why non-folk, no. Painting, no, we know that painting is a visual art, right? Because we learned that in that lesson that painting is a two-dimensional visual art. Remember, under visual art, we have two classifications. We have the two-dimensional and the classical, the commercial and decorative art, wherein the three-dimensional is there. No? That's why sculpture is under that also. No? So this were like visual arts. No? So it's still there. No? The two-dimensional, printmaking, two-dimensional, photography. This one is under the commercial, no? Decorative art, okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, for this one, yeah, it's under this non-traditional art, and then these are the awardees. No? National Artist for Visual Arts. No? I don't know him. Yeah. Coaching kind of familiar, but still not that much. Unlike the Ryan Cayabyab, no, and Ismael Bernal, and even Fernando po. Fernando po is also here. Probably you're familiar with him. I think for the film later. So there, the literature, no, as I mentioned, it's part of the non-traditional art. Okay, and as I mentioned, literature is kind of broad. So indeed, no, it has two forms: the poetry and the prose. The prose are this, no. Fiction, essay, literature, and more, the novels, no? Okay, so which I question under, which is under the audio art, right? This is under the audio art. But actually the focus is more on the poetry. So Nick Joaquin is familiar to me. I don't know with you. Yeah, he's familiar to me. National Artist for Literature, no? Because it's like one of the subjects also, no? In college, literature, no? Is it in college? Or also in high school, no? Probably you're familiar with him because in English, we have this part of literature, right? Wherein he's mentioned, no, because he's popular as a Filipino artist when it comes to literature. No? Okay, so probably we've read some of his work now. So it's actually dead now. And also this person, national artist for literature. He's not familiar to me. Probably he's familiar to you, na. Okay, so there. So next is this is what I'm talking about now. These two are familiar to me na. I don't know with your generation, but I suppose he's familiar to you because you can see his movie, right? Fernando Po. But Ismael Bernal, because he's behind the scenes, so he's not familiar to you, but he's familiar to me. Okay, so he died here, and for sure he's not familiar to you, probably, no? Unless you're into this thing, no? You're studying this thing, yeah, you're familiar with him. But he's dead already, no? During that time you were not born, I suppose, because I think most of you were born like 21st century, right? 20 something, if I'm not mistaken, because you're not yet 22, right? Correct? But it's okay if you're 22 na. No problem, because if in college naman, any age will do it. But I think most of you is not, right? So most of you were like born 20, no? You're part like of a 21st century, no? So you not supposed. So you're sure that I'm still alive. I'm alive, no? During this time, because that's 1996. Okay, so and then we have Fernando Po. Okay, so you're alive here now when he died. That's why probably you're familiar with him, and you also watch his movie. So that's the film, the art in film, no? So sometimes, we have that understanding that when you say art, that one, no, something like something that you two-dimensional, no, two-dimensional, because that's our that's the misunderstanding, or because in elementary, right, when we say art, it's usually it's something like that, art class, no, art class. It's like two-dimensional, no, something that we draw, right? Though we studied elements of art there, no? But music, no, it's kind of separate from art class, right? So that's why we have a misunderstanding that music is like, it's not art, but it's actually now we're learning that, or we have learned that music is an art, even the literature, no? Because literature is part of the English, eh? So that's why we have that misunderstanding that that when you say art, something that you draw only, no? But actually not, no? And you have realized that, no? Actually, even before, it's probably not. Even before taking this course, you realize that already. No? But for some of us, probably not. Okay, so film and broadcast direction, film and broadcast production, writing, production design, cinematography, animation, performance, new media, no? All related to this that can be part of art. So Ismael Bernal and Fernando Po Jr., actor, and I guess he's a director, no? Director. Ismael Bernal, and usually his movies now with deep with meaning, no? That's why he's a national artist for cinema. So I would say like with soul, no? Probably is included in that soul making, the topic that we will discuss later, no? He was able to achieve that, no? The soul making of art, because usually his movie I know what I'm no? What I mean when I say that movie has a soul, no? Like it has meaning, no? Deep meaning. That's his movie, eh. Whereas for Fernando Po Jr., he's national artist probably for his action, for his no, how he act, yeah. But when it comes to his movie, we know it's like action movie, right? Okay. So anyway, I don't want to talk more about that, but it's also good to mention it because later we'll mention about the meaning, no? Later when it comes to soul making, that topic. Okay, class? So to continue, this is another example of non-traditional art, architecture, and allied arts. No? So non-folk. So again, because this is non-traditional, no? So we mentioned this non-folk architecture, interior design, landscapes architecture, and urban design. So these are like artists being awarded in this kind of art, no? The architecture and allied arts. So this one looks like Manuel Alquesa, no? The president, former president. So anyway, Francisco T. Manyosa and Jose Maria Zaragoza, a national artist for architecture and the national artist for architecture and allied art. But I guess he's still alive, no? How come there's no end date? End date. Unlike him, no? Okay, so anyway, so let's proceed. Design. So design, that's all there is to it. I guess it's you can explore more if you want to, but I think you understand this now when you say fashion design and industrial design. Okay, so I think that's the last one. for the non-traditional art. So let's go to the third one, the functional art. So as the term implies, it serves a function. No, it's not just the beauty in it, but also more of the function. No? That's why it's functional arts. So the first one is the kutkut, a technique combining ancient Oriental and European art processes. No, Oriental and it's like Eastern and Western art. No, considered lost art and highly collectible art. No, collectible because it's lost art. No, form. So the technique was practiced by indigenous people of Samar Islands. So indeed, in the Philippines, no? Indigenous. So you know what I mean by indigenous, like Igorot and others. No? Later, we'll talk about indigenous art. So this kind of indigenous art in a way. No? When we talk of art, I think other forms of arts. Okay, so I think it's kind of under this also. No? Under that, the indigenous art, this one. So this one between 1600s and late 1800s. So meaning, yeah, actually 16th century, no, meaning the date here can be 15 something, no, like 1521 until 1600. No, this one late 1800s, 18th century, that can be 1725, 1799, like that, no, because when you say century, 100, no, so we're talking of that date, 1700s until 1800s. This 115 until 16. This one is late, so that means probably 17, 1799, something like that, because the next there is 1800, no, or 1780, okay, like that, later. So anyway, this one, so during this time, no, this technique was practiced during this time. Is an exotic Philippine art form, no, based on early century techniques. So these are like techniques used as graffito and caustic and layer. But we cannot discuss this in detail. But if you want, you can explore this more, no? You can Google that. Excuse me. Usually in painting class, no, it's a technique in painting. That's why there's graffito painting and caustic painting, layering painting. No, you explore more about that. No, to be honest, I don't really understand this part. No, what this is. So we can explore more on that later if we have time. Otherwise, we can do independent. No, okay, that's good. Good. And then the other one in summer. So this one is Hindu Buddhist iconography. No, these religious and cultural influences mostly came through trade with Southeast Asian, no? Thessalocratic empires such as Srivijaya and Majapahit, which has turned trade relationships with India. So this one class, we know that in the Philippines, the religion is not only Christian, but there are those who are like, I don't know, the religion is Buddhist. No? That's why there is here Buddhism. No? There's some of us, no? But minor. No? So that's why we have this kind of art, no? Developed from this religious group. Okay, this art here. Okay, so for them, it has a purpose, right? This has a purpose for them. Okay, so that's the functional art. Next is the Lingling O. Lingling O, but it says in omega shape, no? It's like a Greek letter. Greek letter. An omega-shaped type of pendant or amulet that has been associated with various indigenous cultures. Again, indigenous like Igorot and other. We know that Philippines has a lot of indigenous groups, right, in the Philippines, no? Not only Igorot. So, so associated to various, no? Probably we see this from these people, no? Wearing an amulet or pendant, no? Since the early metal age, no? That's why it's made up of metal, no? Okay, so that's the Lingli O, which we can see in this workshop, I guess. Batanes, no, workshop. Early historians posited that the earliest Lingli O artifacts found in the Philippines were created outside of archipelago. If you know the location of Batanes, you will understand why outside of the archipelago, because it's like outside the Philippines, but Batanes is in the boundary, right? That's why you will understand why. Created outside, but popularized here in this place, no, Batanes, in the Philippines. Okay, so that's the Lingli O. Example of functional art. Another one is architecture. You know, they range from simple bahay kubo, which is the basis of all Filipino cultural architecture. This one is not the usual bahay kubo. No? Usually, the usual bahay kubo is really for you can reside, you can live there. No, right? If you go to Laguna, I guess, yeah, we have an example of that. No, I think the old house of Jose Rizal. No, still see there until now. No. It's really good for living. No? You can live there, you can reside there. But this one is not something that you can reside, no. But an example of bahay kubo also. No? It's like more of like for family, no, for like holiday, and then like a living room, no, you can talk here, like, right? I usually see this in ano class, di ba? Resort, this kind of ano, this kind of ano, this bahay kubo also. But the popular bahay kubo to us is the one with the ano, di ba? With the window. Okay, so it's good to explore on that. Another way of looking at bahay kubo. So the basis of all Filipino cultural architecture, no? So it's kind of it's the basis, no? This one. Okay, class. So made up of bamboo. Okay, anyway, so that's for the architecture. As an example of functional art, and the weaving, which we discussed in the traditional art, right? The weaving, we get traditional art from weaving, no? So this is also functional art. No? It involves many threads being measured, cut, and mounted on a wooden platform. The threads are dyed and weaved on a loom. Usually, I see this in a movie, but not really in reality, no? And from the picture only. I don't know with you. Probably you see this already in actual, no? Actual. Okay, so that's another functional art. And then other forms of art. So let's talk about other forms of art. As I mentioned, the indigenous art is mentioned here. No, aside from the three, these are the other forms. So, so it's the first one. Indigenous art, Philippine indigenous art, because we're talking of indigenous people in the Philippines. Sometimes used to refer to the utility of indigenous materials as a medium for the creation of different kinds of artworks. Okay, of course, this has purpose to them. No? And I think you see some of them, no? Still these days, no? Still. Okay, especially if you go to that province where there is indigenous people, no? Okay, so next is the batok, no? Batok. So I don't know if it's related to that part of our body, batok. So a form of indigenous tattooing of the Kalika people, no? In the Cordilleras, no? Tattooing. But this is not batok, right? If you're considering that part of the body which is batok, but it's not batok to me. Okay, so anyway, it's good to explore this also. How come it's batok? No? In fact, there's another word here. You might laugh or smile. Mambabatok. No? Okay, so one odd is the last mambabatok. No? I think it has to do with another person. No? So I think batok here is not a Filipino word, no? Or a Tagalog word, no? Because we're talking of indigenous, eh. So this maybe have a different meaning to them, no? It's good to explore on that. So the last mambabatok and a national icon, no? The national icon. Performing the batek tattoo art of the But Kalinga, no? Okay, I don't know if it's really batek. Probably it's batok. You can look at your module class, no, regarding that. So I guess it's ano, it's yeah, it's really batek. So it's good to explore on that. No, the batek. It's really bat or batok. Okay, so that's what I mean by being critical, na. Okay, so anyway, what we want to focus here is more on the ano. There are some details to be explored. This is another form of art, which is indigenous art. So that's the focus here. So you can study the details if you want to. So we see here the art, right? But it's not in the batok, right? That we know of. So probably another meaning, na. Okay, batek. Okay, so probably it has to do with this kind of this style, no? That's why it's called batek. Okay, it has to do with this style of art. Okay, so anyway, let's proceed. Now I think this is the last one, no? Tanaga. Tanaga. This is the last one. It's like a transition to the next topic, eh? Because the next topic we'll talk about poetry. That's soul making, no? So anyway, Tanaga, it's another other form of art, a type of Filipino poetry. So here, class, poetry, no, the focus, no, though it's a literature, right? Remember when we talk about literature, it's like the first in the list also poetry, no? Not the essay, but poetry. So that's why literature art there, because the focus is more on poetry. It's considered audio art because usually, as I mentioned, to appreciate poems, no, or this form of literature, usually it's good if somebody is saying it, is reading it, right, aloud and with emotions, right? That's how we can appreciate this form of art, no, the poem or this poetry, no. So Tatanaga is a type of Filipino poem consisting of 4 lines with 7 syllables, each with the same rhyme at the end of each line. That is to say, 777 syllabic verse with the ABV rhyme scheme. Okay, so there are some dialects, not here, no, not like Tagalog words, but there's English as well. Okay, class. So that's that's it for this topic. And then let's go to the next topic, which is about, it's also interesting. And as I mentioned, it's good to end the course, no, this the course or the term with this, because when you say art appreciation, it's kind of misunderstood also, like appreciating art using your eyes only, no. But because of the past lessons, we realized, of course, not just using your eyes, but also using your no, because for the audio, right, using your ears, no, for hearing. But there's more to it, no. The touch, meaning the emotion, is involved. But more than the emotion, the soul as well. No? That's why it's soul making. No? So let's find out. It's kind of interesting. What is soul making, no? In relation to art? Okay, let's dive in. So these are the objectives for this topic. No? But it's kind of short, but still we have these objectives. To define soul making, to identify the word metaphor in soul making, to recognize soul making as uh, poetry making, no? So there, as you notice, we just talked about poetry a while ago. So indeed, it's kind of good transition, no? Because here there's like a focus on poetry, no? Poetry making and poetry of psych. Okay, and this metaphor, okay, let's discuss that later. So let's dive in. So soul making is a process where the basic seed of divine intelligence in all humans goes through necessary experience, no? Especially suffering to transform into a unique soul, no? So it's kind of deep, diba? It's kind of deep, because there's talk of divine intelligence, no, in all humans. So we're talking of divine intelligence in human, no? And then this experience, no, experience. So probably, remember the historical art that we talked about before, during the lesson on the history of art, right? The history of art. There's an art there wherein what's there in the picture is really about history, no? If you're part of that, in the picture, probably there is this thing about experience, no? That when you look at the art and you're part of it, you look at the art with soul, right? Something like that, with meaning to you, and not just meaning like external, but internal, because you're part of it. Okay, but how about for those who haven't really part of that experience, but how can you achieve this, no? Okay, that's why there's more to it, no? There's like a requirement, so that you can achieve this level of soul making, no? Okay, let's discuss more and then go back to this probably to understand it better. The term soul making is a metaphor, so it is a metaphor. So when you say metaphor, class, it's a figurative language. No, you learned this in English when you were in high school. There's also like similar to this simile, like simile because you use the word like. For example, she acts like a lion, so because of like. But if you remove the like, it's a kind of metaphor, but it's kind of weird, no? She's a lion, no? Something like that, no? You remove the like, but it's kind of comparison, direct comparison. So it's not, you don't use the word like anymore, no? So here, class, the word metaphor is comprised of two Greek words, meta, above, and pero, to carry. That's why when we define metaphor here, you see the word, no? Above, there, and carry. And then with details, no? So what is metaphor? Based on these two Greek words. Metaphor is an image or phrase, like this, soul making, no? That carries the reader above the literal sensory realm of invisible imagination. So meaning, it's like a text class now. You have a text, you read it, right? You can read it literally. But you know that there's such thing as reading between the lines. Meaning, you read it in context. You don't just, for example, if you're reading a Bible, you know it has context, right? You don't just read the lines themselves, though they are meaningful also if you just read them, especially those in the New Testament, right? There are those verses which are like meaningful, not even without the context, but you can apply it really in your your personal life. But it's good also to know the context. So that's reading between the lines, especially in the Old Testament, no? Sometimes there are verses in the Old Testament that is, you don't take it literally, because if you take it literally, it's like contradicting, you know? It's like there's a contradiction. So you will understand it better if you know the context during that time. Okay, that's like reading between the lines. Similarly for the art. That is why it's not art appreciation. It's more than, there's a deeper meaning to it, no? Because there's a misunderstood meaning wherein you understand it like that involving your eyes only, good to the eyes, no? Something like that. Even that thing using your ears, no? It's kind of not familiar to us, because when you say art, because as I mentioned, we have this like in the educational system wherein we get used to thinking art as like two-dimensional only. So that's like really part of it also, no? That's why we misunderstood, no, the term art appreciation. Okay, class? Anyway, excuse me. So I guess you understand what I mean, no? Regarding this metaphor, no? Okay, so let me proceed. So the word making and soul making comes from the Greek word poio, no? Meaning to be the author or maker of something, no? To be the author or maker of something. So in a way, it really has to do with meaning, no? Possible when you look at the art, it will have meaning to you, no? So you're like the one that's possible, no? Unique to you. So you're like the maker of the meaning, no? And that meaning that you put into it has a soul, no? Something like that, no? But it's different, class, as I mentioned. If you're part of that art, no, where you see yourself in the picture and you experience it, no? That's really no? You don't have to exert effort to achieve this soul making. But for the other art class where you're not part of it, there is like a requirement, no, to reach this level of soul making. Okay, that's what the objective of this course, class, no. That's also one objective of this course. That's why it's art appreciation, so that when you go to the museum, somehow you don't just appreciate it, but you achieve this level of soul making, no? So the making is not done by impersonal processes, but by intelligent forces, no? So remember, we talk about divine intelligence, human intelligence as well, no? So anyway, soul making is really psychopoiesis, or for soul poetry. Okay, so it's kind of close to the poetry, no? Okay, as an art, no? Because usually when we look at the poetry, no, you cannot understand it immediately, right? There's like metaphor, so you don't read the lines literally, but you have to read between the lines. Okay, so that's why this is an example, no, for soul making, no? It's something like that. Okay, wherein you get the meaning of that one to the point that it reaches your soul, that meaning, no, in a way. Okay, that's why when you watch that movie sometimes of Ismael Bernal, or if you watch any movie, sometimes your emotion is affected, no? Okay, that's like part of it, no, the soul making, but not to the fullest also, no, not to the fullest. Because you know that when you think of soul, it's more than emotion, right? It's a soul, right? It's more than intelligence. Okay, it's more than it's more than thinking also, no? So anyway, so it's kind of deep, class. It's kind of abstract as well. So probably that's why there's a focus on poetry, no? Poetry of psych. So let's talk about that. Soul making or psychopoetic, because just putting this in one word or two phrases, no, psychopoetic, are composed of all emotions. So as I mentioned, no? Emotion is involved, but more than that, no? In human institutions, feelings, ideas, pains, and pleasures, and the writing instruments that compose our souls. Okay, so I don't know if this is the last one. Yes, it is the last one, but I want to talk more about this before we end. Okay. In class, in achieving this, for example, you're not part of that experience, as I mentioned. For example, you're not part of that experience, but to achieve this level, it's important that how would I say it? It's important that you have this. No, there's like requirements. For example, you have this the what you call the form, no, or the style, no. That one, no. When you say style, class, remember we studied already the elements, no. The elements of art, right? We talked about that already, and that one, that style, no? You can form style and form if you using the elements. No? That's what the artist does, right? That's why in the origin of the word art, we have the R and the R's, right? The R, AR, meaning putting together, right? And then we have the R's, ARS, meaning the ability or the skills. So that's why I mentioned to you before that the artist, when you say art, the artist has the ability or the skill to put together what? These elements of art or principles of art that we studied about to achieve a certain meaning, no, for the audience. Okay, not just appreciation. But of course, if you reach that level of soul making, you're able to appreciate it and you go deeper than that appreciation. And that is the soul making. No? You get meaning from it. But of course, there's a requirement. No? I think I mentioned that in the last lesson where you look at that, but somehow you have to know the history behind it or the story behind it so that you can get the meaning of it and appreciate more. Not just appreciate it using your senses or using your eyes or your touch, no, but more of it like soul making, as I mentioned. No, you're making a soul. You're like the maker, the maker, as mentioned a while ago. No, so that's why we need that the style. You know something about that, the form, and we're able to achieve that in this course. Now that's why we're studying these elements of art because that's for you to know. Style refers to distinctive handling of elements and media. Now we talk about elements and media, right? That's why we talk about media associated with the work of an individual artist. The form is what the audience sees, no? What you see, a finished product put harmoniously according to different principles of design. But there's another one class which is connected to soul making, and that's the content. Includes not only its form but also its subject matter, underlying meanings or themes. There you have to exert effort, no? Because sometimes you have to do research. No? If you want to get the soul of that art, you have to do it, even though you're not part of that experience, but somehow it's possible for you to achieve that level of soul making. No? You have. But if you're knowledgeable about it, just by looking at it, you can achieve that soul making. So I guess you understand what I mean, right? So those three: style, form, and content. The style and form, I hope no you're able to the course has helped you with that. But the content class is something that you have to do that you have to do. Okay, so meaning not just for the 14 weeks that we're together, no. It has to be another. It has if you're interested, no. That's the thing there, no. Okay, so I think you understand that part about this soul making, no. Okay, so that's it, class. Thank you very much for attending. Bye for now.